Welcome to the SRX preview show. I'm Casey Campbell, and that is Mark Crystal from frontstretch.com. We got 6 weeks of SRX, I should say the Camping World SRX series. I still got to get used to that. But it's gonna be a fun show. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Casey. It's gonna be a good time. You've got 6 tracks that have everything from the quarter-mile slinger to Tony Stewart's own Eldora Speedway.
Yeah. Okay, so Stafford Speedway coming up, but before we get to the tracks, let's get into some of the people that are going to be competing in this. Who are you? We've seen the field announced, and it's a lot of drivers that people would recognize. But who are you looking forward to watching to see how they perform, and some of the names that you're looking forward to?
Well, looking at that list, I mean, Helio Castroneves just won the Indianapolis 500. So I think he is a name that generates new interest for the series, or gives the series more marketability of, hey, we have the reigning Indianapolis 500 winner in our series. I mean, when you look at some of the other names, right? I mean, Tony Stewart owns a NASCAR Cup Series team. He drives on dirt. He drove an open wheel. He's a Hall of Famer. It'll be interesting to see because he owns the series. All these cars are prepared by Ray Everham and his crew. Does Tony Stewart go out and dominate the field, or is this a show where you have somebody like Tony Kanaan show up and run well, catching a lot of people off guard? Not that Kanaan is bad, but I don't know if Kanaan is the name that is getting at least the stock car fans as excited as Tony Stewart, Michael Waltrip, Bobby Labonte. And even if you're a stock car fan, Helio Castroneves in the Indianapolis 500 is a big name.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got Marco Andretti, you got Willie T. Ribbs, we got Paul Tracy in the field, Ernie Francis Jr., Marco Andretti. So, and then there's all these other guys that'll make appearances throughout the season. You got the track ringers, and then you got some part-time guys as well.
Right. And I mean, when you look at a guy like Greg Biffle, who is competing at Stafford and Slinger.
Yeah.
He went out, hopped in a truck for KBM at Texas a couple years back and won it going away. And then he hopped in a truck at Darlington, if I remember correctly, for GMS Racing. And he didn't dominate, but he didn't do poorly. He still was running well. So it'll be interesting to see, does he hop in one of these cars and compete with the regulars?
Yeah. So kind of going into this series, we have also guys like Doug Coby, Brian Brown, Scott Speed's going to make an appearance. Scott Bloomquist will be in a race, I think, this year. You'll also have the Slinger Nationals winner. What out of those names, who do you think is going to make the most impact?
I'm really not, forgive my lack of knowledge, but I'm not as knowledgeable about the dirt world as others. Yeah. Having said that, I mean, Bobby Santos III,
yeah.
He's a name that, I don't really know the modified tour or his dirt, but I mean, he's a name to keep an eye on. The other one that really catches me is the Slinger Nationals winner, because they will have won that race a mere few days beforehand. So they've got experience at that track in its current state. Plus, I mean, as we've seen in sports, momentum is a huge benefit a lot of times, in whether it be in stick and ball sports or in NASCAR. When you start winning and you're on rolling, you're feeling good. You run well. So I think the Slinger Nationals winner will be whomever it is. Will be, I don't know necessarily about a threat, will definitely be competitive. And for those drivers, whether it be the Slinger Nationals, Cody Swanson, Bobby Santos, etc., it's like playing with house money. You're not going for the series championship. You're out here to win a race.
Yeah. Okay, so how's this format going to work? There's going to be a couple heats, and then there's going to be the 100 lap feature. Kind of explain to people that may not know how this is going to work.
Yeah, sure. So you have two races of 15-minute heats.
Yeah.
When the timer runs out, you then have, I believe, the flagman then will wave the white flag, signaling one to go, obviously, and then you go from there. After the first heat, I believe the first heat lineup will be set via random draw, and points will be awarded from both heats and the feature. And after the first heat, the field will be completely inverted for the starting lineup of the second heat. So if you finish first in the first heat, you start dead last in the second heat, and so on and so forth. And then the feature lineup will be set via the finishing results from the first heat. And then the races themselves will be 100 laps apiece, except for Slinger, because Slinger is a quarter mile. Slinger will be 150 laps. These races don't need to have live pit stops, as with, for the stock car racing fans, you can run 100 laps at Lucas Oil Raceway in a late model car without needing to ever stop for fuel. I'm not 100% sure if they will be having, if a yellow flag flies, will there be a crew or two that will allow drivers to come in pit? I don't know if that has been announced yet. Because obviously if your car is tight, you would like to loosen it up or make the proper adjustments. I have not seen anything as to whether or not that will happen. And then the races themselves, 100 laps for the 5 and 150 for Slinger. The idea is to have those in I believe they're going for between a 90-minute and 2-hour time slot on CBS, which is also huge for this series because it is on CBS on Saturday nights.
Yep. CBS Saturday night prime time. It's going to get a lot of eyeballs, and it's going to be on a network that has a lot of eyeballs that can view it. Everybody can get CBS.
Oh, sure.
So it's definitely going to bring a lot of exposure to the series, and for the Camping World SRX series, that's got to be golden for them. So, and of course, the announcing team, Alan Bestwick is back. Lindsay Zarniak will host the pre-race show. Brad Doherty will provide some analysis as well as Danica Patrick. James Hinchcliffe will be part of it as well for a couple races. Dario Franchitti will be the analyst for a couple races, as well as Matt Yoakum being on pit road.
Right, and you hear all those names. These are veterans who are masters at their craft. And then you have drivers. Danica has driven in open wheel and in NASCAR. You have some of the other open wheel drivers. Dario Franchitti raced in NASCAR. So they know, well, they might not have necessarily raced with these drivers. Danica has never raced with Hailie Deegan, and Hailie Deegan will be competing in, I believe, one race.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have an understanding of how to, when the driver says the car is too tight, you have, as Danica Patrick has shown at times, or Matt Yoakum, you can describe for the average person, because again, this is a series that we don't know. Are drivers going to say these cars are like driving a IROC car, because in some ways this series is being compared to the former IROC series, or is it going to be like a stock car in NASCAR where you really want adjustments throughout the race? I don't know that we have that answer. I think the first race is really going to provide those answers to those questions, because obviously a test session and race conditions differ greatly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, there's still some questions that we have to figure out, but I think that we're going to see them as time goes on throughout the next 6 weeks. Okay.
And when you consider the fact that it's in its first ever year, no company, whether it is a sports league or a business or a new school or a new venture in some way, shape, or form, none of those are perfect in the first year. If a TV show's best season is its first year, it's doomed. And
Right.
so for SRX, there's going to be, call it kinks, that they haven't sorted out yet. Some of these issues they might not have foreseen yet that you need to adjust on. And but Tony Stewart and Ray Everham, and they have CBS Camping World sponsoring it. So there's a lot of wise individuals who, if there's something that needs to be adjusted, I think you will see not just a change, but a change that will hopefully better it.
Yeah. So I think that this series is, going to be for the next 6 weeks and 6 different unique tracks. We're going to short tracks, dirt tracks, all different kinds of tracks, from Stafford Speedway in Connecticut to Knoxville, the Knoxville Dirt Track in Iowa, Eldora, of course, owned by Tony Stewart, Lucas Oil Raceway, or as many people like to call it, IRP. We have Slinger, home of the Slinger Nationals out in Wisconsin, and then finishing it off at one of the most iconic tracks in America, the Nashville Fairgrounds, to finish it out. So out of those 6 tracks, Mark, what are you looking toward? What are you looking forward to?
I think because CBS is broadcasting this, viewers are going to get a chance to see a lot of these tracks for the first time ever. Frankly, I've never seen a race. I've seen highlights on Twitter and YouTube, etc., but I've never actually seen a race at Stafford Motor Speedway. So, and like you, I've covered NASCAR and other, watched other races and series. So if I haven't seen it, imagine how the average viewer is going to see it of, hey, Stafford Motor Speedway. Oh, that's only a 2-hour drive away from my house. Well, maybe that was some good racing. Maybe I ought to go up there and catch a race. As well as when you look at Slinger, I mean, Wisconsin has a bevy of short tracks. I could list a ton, and I'd probably still be missing some. Of those, Slinger is famed for the Slinger Nationals, and rightly so. And Wisconsin folks, they love the racing. They fill those short tracks all the time.
Yep.
And so I think you're going to see, I presume, we haven't heard anything distinctly, but I presume you're going to get, if not 100% capacity, you're going to get very close to, in regards to if there are any COVID-19 protocols.
Okay.
So I think it's going to allow these viewers a chance to see some tracks that are some fun racing. Lucas Oil Raceway, as we both can remember, there were some great now NASCAR Xfinity Series races there back in the day. Eldora, they put on some great races for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. Knoxville Raceway, the Truck Series is going there. And by the way, for Eldora and Knoxville, they've hosted their share of famed, glorious dirt track race or dirt races themselves for other series. Yeah. So I don't necessarily know that of all the racetracks, the 2 that stand out to me that I am interested to see are Stafford, because I've never actually seen a full race there. Plus, it's the first race for the series, so it will be a good learning experience for all of us, drivers, the management of the series, CBS on maybe what worked, what didn't work from their broadcast perspective, the media critiquing it, the fans watching it, etc. The other race that I am curious, that I'm really looking forward to seeing, is the race at Fairgrounds Speedway in Nashville. As you know, there has been talks to get that back on the NASCAR National Series. Dale Earnhardt Jr. in advance of the ARCA Menard Series East race there earlier this year, yep, he stated that if the NASCAR Xfinity Series returns there, he will race there every single year. And so when you consider that, that will be interesting to see, because if that race gets high ratings, drivers love it, it's well received, that might, while SRX is separate from NASCAR, that momentum has to be productive in terms of can NASCAR return there? I know a lot of people want Nashville Fairgrounds or Fairground Speedway Nashville to return to the schedule. So will it? Let the people in charge decide that. But I think for SRX, it's an interesting choice because it does put the pressure on NASCAR. The same thing with Eldora Speedway. It hosted the Truck Series for several years. It no longer hosts the Truck Series, and now it has SRX.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see all those 6 races. So if you've seen these, preview shows and, the NASCAR preview show that I do,
sure,
we always make some picks. So what's going to happen? I'll let you go first, but who do you think is going to be, who do you think is going to get it done at Stafford next week?
Oh, good. We're not picking a champion because that was going to be a challenge.
We're not going to do that yet.
As far as Stafford, the track champion that will be there is Doug Coby.
Yeah.
Greg Biffle will also be there.
Yep.
And so you've got those 2 names. Will their experience at that track benefit them more so because none of these other drivers have tested there? And to my understanding, I have not heard of any practice session in advance, thus you have the heat. So the first time, to my understanding, these drivers are getting in these cars and their first lap will be lap 1 of the first heat. So I think that does put an interesting perspective and giving some sort of a light onto Doug Coby and Greg Biffle because nobody knows what these cars are going to be like. As far as a winner, the names that pop out to me, Bobby Labonte, look, he drove in the NASCAR Whelen Series a couple of years back. He's a NASCAR Cup Series champion. He has not been out of the car for as many years as somebody like Bill Elliott or Willie T. Ribbs. So I think that will give him an advantage. The other name I'm looking at is Helio Castroneves, momentum, and he's in a car currently. So even if these open wheel cars for Indianapolis, for the Indy cars, differ greatly from the SRX cars, which I presume they do, that those reflexes got him the milk at the end of the Indianapolis 500. He's not rusty in any way, shape, or form. So the 2, I will pick Bobby Labonte, but I think Helio Castroneves will be interesting because he's racing, he's popular, and he's got momentum. He's got to feel confidence.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go with the track champion, as you said. I'm gonna go with Doug Coby because, with these types of cars is one thing, but you got to know the track too, and he knows that track. So I think he's gonna really be the one to look out for and really get the job done. I also think that, guys like, Tony Stewart's going to be strong. You mentioned, I do think Bobby Labonte is going to really be a contender in this series, as well as Elio. And who knows what could happen. We could see some surprises. We could see guys like, Ernie Francis Jr. be up there.
Right.
Marco Andretti, just came off the Indy 500. And who knows, we could see Michael Waltrip up there too. So
sure. And keep in mind, these cars are supposed to be built I believe by Ray Everham in conjunction with, I believe it's Fury Race cars.
Mm-hmm.
These cars are supposed to be built equally, and none of these drivers choose their cars in advance. I believe these drivers will receive their cars via random draw. So there is not Michael Waltrip. Let's just say Michael Waltrip has car number 12, for example, at Stafford. He is not guaranteed to receive that car at the next race. The driver who picks first might say, Michael Waltrip drove car number 12. It ran really well at Stafford. Maybe I will choose that. So I think that's another interesting thing is, unlike in stock cars, in late models, you have cars that are built for specific series, and in NASCAR and ARCA, you have purpose-built cars for certain types of tracks. Nobody knows what these cars how their car is going to react at each race. Where I think is going to provide some intrigue into the heats, because completely inverting the field after the first heat for the second one at a lot of short tracks, you would say, well, guys are going to sandbag it to try and start first in the second heat so that they can have a good starting position in the feature. However, there are points awarded in the first heat, and the first heat is kind of like a practice session to an extent, because nobody knows what these cars are like.
Right.
So will the first heat be much more laissez-faire or laid back than the second heat or the feature? I don't know. I think as the series grows closer, just say once you get maybe 2 or 3 races into this thing, you are going to see where everybody is stacking up in the points. And if you have no chance, or you think, God, my chances of winning this title are minimal at best, do you in that first heat say, I'm going to go all out, try and win this heat, gain maximum points, and try and get back in this thing?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a show to watch. And I think the unpredictability is what is making this series to tune in and say, hey, I want to watch this and see what happens. So we'll definitely find out, because it's going to be quite the show. But anyway, Mark Crystal, thank you so much. We're going to be on every single week, obviously not next week because we already did this week, but we're going to be on every single week to preview the SRX series. So we will talk to you in a few weeks to preview the SRX race at Knoxville, or I should say the Camping World SRX series.
Credit to Marcus Lemonis there too.
Yep.